Hi guys, and welcome to another build video. So today, as you can see, we're building one of these. This is an Opel Omnibus. This one is by Roden, as you can see. It is in 1/35 scale and the kit number is 807. Now I have done a review of this kit and I will put the link in the description so you can have a look at that if you're interested. Now this is purely just a bus. These were used for transporting personnel around bases, as command vehicles, you name it. They had all sorts of uses and they were built on the Opel Blitz chassis. Now, the thing with this kit is there are no figures included, which is a shame because at least they could have put in a driver, but they didn't. So what I have done with this particular build is I'm including some figures. Now the figures that I'm going to use with this kit are these ones. They're by Dragon, and it is Dragon's German Half-Track Riders. Kit number is 6671. And even though it does show you 11 figures on the front, you do actually get 12 figures in this. Yep, definitely 11, but on the front. But you do get 12 figures, and I have done a review of this particular kit as well. As you can see, they're wearing standard uniforms, few rifles, side caps, but not much else. So they're perfect for this kind of passenger requirement for a omnibus. So this will be a really nice kit for fleshing out any transport vehicle, but in this instance I'm going to use it on the bus, so that should be an interesting fit. I may have to do some adjustments with the seats or something, but we'll see when we get there. Anyway, that's what we're building today, so let's get started. So as you can see, I've got the engine in the front and the front suspension on. That was fairly straightforward. I haven't put the radiator on because the fan actually goes into that cutout. It sits, if I can get it in there without too much drama, it sits right in there. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to, once I've painted the entire chassis, I'm going to paint up the engine with steel and other colors. And even though, yes, you won't see it because I'm not going to have the engine open, I'm still going to paint it up just for the exercise. If I was going to display the engine so that you could see it, I'd actually add some wires, and I'll see if I can bring that closer, spark plugs to the distributor, right? Fiddly, but doable, especially on this one, since the distributor points are really nicely shown, and so are the spark plugs. So easily run some wires from the distributor to the spark plugs, and probably even add a couple of wires where necessary for the coils, etc., for this engine. That's if I was going to display it, which I'm not, but I am going to paint it up. And the other thing I've got to show you is, while I've got the chassis up, this is the rear differential, the leaf spring suspension, of course, and the back wheels. So the only thing holding the back wheels and a diff on are the leaf spring suspension, and they sit on here. But before you do that, you have to put in the drive shafts. So the drive shafts are pretty easy. It's a one piece, and it just sits into the back of the engine and down in here. Now these bits here are supposed to sit down into that chassis frame there, and that will need a little bit of sanding, and then I'll do that. And then the diff and the back wheels go on, front wheels go on, and pretty much that's the chassis done. Oh, and the petrol tank, of course, and the exhaust pipes. So they're all fiddly bits, but I'm going to get on and do those right now. So now that the chassis is completely finished and ready for painting, the next step is the body. And unfortunately, there's a lot of pre-work to be done on the body. I'm not sure if you can see it on this, but there's a lot of push-out points on the roof. The same goes for the rest of the interior. This is the back of the bus, and it does have some interesting points that need to be sanded down and filled, and also the sides and the doors. They are either going to be needed filling, like this one, or sanded down, like this one on the door here. So all of that has to be done before I can get anywhere close to actually painting this. So that's my next step. And even the seats, the back of the seats, all have pronounced push out points on them, which will need to be filled and then sanded down. So that's the next step. I'm not going to bore you with showing you me doing that, because that's going to take hours of work to do all that. So what I'll just do is, when I've completed it, I'll show you the end results. All right, so time for me to get on and do a bit of filling and sanding. So as you can see, the interior has had all of the push-out points filled and sanded, and there are a lot of push-out points in every side panel, the roof, you name it. Every one of the seats has a push-out point on it, which has been filled and sanded. So that was quite a bit of work to get that down to a satisfactory level, but it is looking good and it does feel good now. You can still see the push-out points, but they are quite smooth to the touch, so they should come out well when they're painted. As you can see, the chassis and everything is done, so that's really nicely done. All I've got to do now is just weather this chassis a little bit, and that's it. So we're up to the next stage, which is assembling the interior, which is the seats and everything that goes inside, all of these other parts, before we attach them to the chassis. And everything is going to be pre-painted. So first up, assembly, and then we're going to paint each section as it is assembled, and it's going to be painted in this. This is Vallejo's surface primer, German dark yellow. 74604 is the code for the 200ml bottle of primer, and this substitutes not only as the base primer but also as a base coat for the vehicle. So this will be the interior, and when it comes to doing the exterior, I'm going to use a lighter shade of this to give the a little bit of light differentiation between the interior and the exterior of the bus. Okay, so let's carry on and start putting this thing together. So as you can see, I've glued the seats in, and the passengers that I've selected for this bus can't actually sit in there. So I had a bit of a think, and I have decided to remove some of these seats to make it easier to fit the passengers in, and actually to make it look a little bit more like the kind of bus you'd want to sit in. Now, the first thing that's going to come out is this one, because, and this is the side of the bus, that seat is, as you can see, exactly where the door, the entry door is to the bus, and that wouldn't be there. So that one's coming out, this one's coming out, and these two are coming out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these two forward to about here, thereabouts, and that will mean that these guys will actually be able to sit in those seats. Is it historically accurate for this particular bus? I don't know, and in actual fact I don't really care. My intention is to have some passengers in this bus to add a bit of flesh to it, so that's how we're going. Literally, these are way too close together, and I don't know whether Roden's seating layout in this bus is accurate or not. It's very hard to get interior photos. I've only seen one interior photo, and I'm not even sure it's the right bus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together a few more figures and the driver. Make sure they're all going to be able to sit in the seats. So move the seats around and stuff like that. And then we'll carry on and actually paint this one and the insides. All right, so as you can see, everything has been painted. I've given the seats a wooden overtone, green for the front seats because they're actually padded for the driver and his assistant. So that section is all done. Inside and out has both been done. The outside is actually a lighter shade. It's about 4 shades lighter than the inside, although it doesn't really show up very well on the video. That makes the inside darker, as it would be in any vehicle, but the outside is nice and light. So what I have to do now is weather this and also the inside, give it a bit of wear because it has been used by various passengers. Not a great deal of wear because these are buses, they're not tanks or AFVs, so they were maintained by the drivers and the mechanics on a regular basis, but I will give it some wear marks on the floor, etc., for where it's been scuffed by people walking through with hobnail boots, etc. So that's fairly straightforward. Again, the color I used for this, inside and out, is this one from Vallejo. It is their German dark yellow surface primer. I used this straight for the interior, and then I lightened it with white paint. I believe it was 2 to 3, so 2 drops of this, 3 drops of white, gave me a nice lighter yellow tone without going over the top, so that's really nicely done. And also I have painted the passengers as well, so they're all done. All I've got to do now is give these guys a matte coat, give them some semi-matte for the boots, give it a little bit of shine but not too shiny because these are regular infantry soldiers, not staff officers. These guys do not have belts, so fairly straightforward as far as the black's concerned. All of their insignia is done, so I'll give you some shots of the passengers. And the other thing is, unfortunately, I had to paint the instruments. You do get decals, but the decals just fell apart. I tried them with plain water and I tried them with setting solution. Didn't make any difference. They just broke up on me, which is really annoying. So as you can see, I painted them, They're not perfect, but they will do for this instance. And that's it. So all I've got to do is weather the interior, and then we'll start putting the bus together. So now that the floor in the front mounted onto the chassis, of course, now we're up to the stage where we have to put the side panels on. As you can see, I have already taken the paint away from areas where this is actually going to glue to the side. But first, of course, we have to put in the windows. So the windows are acetate and will need to be cut out very, very carefully. So I've used a new blade, and I've already done a couple of them just for practice. And as you can see, that's the front windscreen. This is the rear window, and this is the rear door. So with this, all I've done is I'm using, in Australia, it's called Selleys Aquadeer. It's white glue, basically. Same stuff that you use to stick timber together. Very simple stuff. A small paintbrush, fine paintbrush, a dab of the white glue in top of a Pringles can, which are ideal for things like this. And all I'm doing is dabbing that, painting around the inside frame of the window, and then I put the window itself in very carefully with tweezers. And then what I've done is I've then taken more white glue and painted the inside of the window to make sure that it's all glued in. And once that's all nice and dry, I will then repaint that in the correct shade of dark yellow so that you won't even notice where the glue is on this part. And that's it. So very, very carefully, as you can see, I'm using a white piece of paper because the cutting board itself is covered in dust and all sorts of things, and acetate scratches very, very easily. So sharp blade, very carefully cut this out, and that's it. So I'm going to carry on doing this. I'll show you some shots of the finished product once all the windows are in, because it is quite an intensive, and it's the kind of thing you do take your time and great care with. All right, so onward and upward. So here we are at the final stage of the build, and this is where we put the sides on, back, etc., and the roof. As you can see, I've already started with the front because I needed to check whether these actually fitted in the right spot or not. I have done a dry fit for every piece, so this will literally fit here. The sides fit on perfectly, everything goes right. The only issue I've had is with this part. So it's hard to tell in the camera, but it is actually, and I'll put that down so I don't drop it, it's actually dished inwards. Which has caused a bit of an issue, because once that is fitted hard up against there, and you take the bonnet section, it actually created a gap at the back of the bonnet. So as you can see, I've filled that gap with some plastic card. I'll give you a shot of that anyway. All I've got to do is trim that down, sand it down, and that will fit perfectly in the front there. Apart from that, this thing is ready to put together. Everything's ready to glue on. And just in case you're wondering what it's going to look like with and without passengers. So you get a good idea. But once this is all together, these guys are going to be glued in place. The back, the sides, the doors, everything's going on. So I'll give you some shots, progress shots on that, and she will be done. So there she is, all done. Not a bad kit at all. Overall thoughts, everything fitted together without too much drama, apart from, of course, the front part, which was bent inwards. You can kind of still see that, but it's not too bad. And the doors were the biggest issue. They have cutouts around the frame to fit into the side panels. Unfortunately, the side panels don't have cutouts to allow the doors to fit. So everything had to be sanded down, cut down, measured, remeasured, just to get the doors to fit. But apart from that, no major issues with fit. Everything seemed to go together really well, and I do like this kit. The only issue I had, apart from the doors and the bent front, was with the decals. So they just fell apart. As you can see on the large red cross, there's a bit of a chip there already, but literally even using the softest brush to move them off the backing paper, they just fell apart. So it's probably a case of very thin carrier film, because they haven't gone yellow with age or anything. They are still white, but unfortunately I couldn't use them. I ended up using Tamiya decals from a 1/35 scale Horsch staff car. Works just as well, and overall I'm very happy with the way this turned out. I'm not a fan of acetate windows. There are some scratches, and unfortunately they do take a lot of static. They generate a lot of static, so any bit of dust or whatever sticks to it. So there is a bit of dust on the inside. I can't do anything about that. But apart from that, this is a really nice kit, and I do like it very much so. Anyway, I'll give you some final shots of it, and as usual guys, thank you for watching this build video. I did enjoy this build. Had its challenges, most builds do, but that's why we do modeling. So thanks for watching, and as usual, until next time, take it easy, stay safe, and I will see you later.